Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
Okay, welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable, Mental Health Matters with partner NAMI Contra. Today is Saturday, May the 6th, 2023, and June is LGBTQ Pride Month. And our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm the co-host, attorney Ernesto Borges of the law firm of Borges and Wu. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. Today, we've got our partner, Gigi Crowder. She's the executive director of NAMI Contra Costa in California. NAMI is a national, stands for, it's an acronym for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's an advocacy group that was founded by family members of people who have mental illnesses. And our panelist is none other than Dr. Mark Wilson, and he is with NAMI Contra Costa LGBTQ support group. And our discussion today is going to be about LGBTQ Pride Month and LGBTQ suicide prevention. So welcome, Dr. Smith. Dr. Wilson it is. Dr. Wilson? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Dr. Wilson?
Yeah. Hello?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Yes, I'm here.
Great,
okay,
great.
here I am.
How are you? Okay, Dr.
Good,
Wilson.
I'm well.
Good to hear that. Okay, as we celebrate Pride Month, and so what resources and supports should we lift up to ensure that mental health of those who identify as LGBTQ are taken into account? Is there something that, are there resources here that we don't know about that you could help us with?
I'm sorry, resources where? Here in the
as to the mental health of people in that community.
Yeah. I would say one of the greatest resources of LGBTQ health are the LGBTQ centers. For example, here in California, the Bay Area, we have the Pacific Center for Human Growth, the LGBT Center in San Francisco Center. Maybe the city is going to find a center. And what's happening at those centers now, they used to be gathering places maybe for the LGBTQ community in the early days where, had social gatherings. But they're licensed therapists there now that particularly can focus up on sexuality, sexual orientation, and gender identity. That's one place of support. The other place of support are the institutions that are helping with LGBTQ or queer youth and queer youth programs. Groups like the Trevor Project that has I think that's probably about the best website with a lot of educational materials.
Mm-hmm. You want to give us that website?
Yeah, the Trevor Project. It's got just lots of education materials. It's online. It's a website with videos and things. I say another way to support it is just treating an LGBTQ person well. Being human. I think.
Sure.
Mental illness has to do with the way we treat each other in communities often, right. And
the golden rule, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now, Gigi Crowder, you're executive director. Are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Okay. So I'll let you bring out some of the things that we need to know and ask the doctor about some of the questions regarding depression and other areas that seem to be, bothering or that are affecting that community, and not as if we all don't suffer from some type of depression or anxiety disorders, but is there anything particular to the LGBTQ community?
Well, at NAMI Contra Costa and across our affiliates across the nation, we recognize that a lot of times the services are not catered to the individual. So leaving an important part of how a person's identified out of the conversation has been very harmful. So we use the first do no harm approach, and there were statewide studies in California of how we could reduce the disparities that are experienced by the LGBT community members. So when we got an opportunity in Contra Costa County at NAMI, we wanted to have an affirming, safe space because we do recognize that for individuals from those communities, there's a lot of stigma associated, as well as young people in particular with higher rates of suicide. So as Dr. Mark Wilson, who's an expert in the field in California, widely recognized, understood, and why we brought him onto our NAMI team was to facilitate the support groups, the subject matter experts, because we wanted to ensure that young people and older people have a safe place to be completely, freely who they are. And because of his background as a faith leader, that became very important for us to also recognize the spiritual practices that are embraced by that community as well.
Absolutely. That is something. So spirituality, of course, is important to us all. And Doctor, could you tell us a little bit about your sick? We say Dr. Mark Wilson, and what type of doctor are you? Or you're are you a
PhD,
doctor of ministry, or yes?
No, my PhD in sociology, and undergrad degrees, one from Howard University, and my BA philosophy, and Harvard Divinity School, and the University of Michigan. It's in sociology. Yeah. And
so you cover all the bases here.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's a holistic approach. It's got to be.
I see.
Mind, body, spirit. And that's another thing we're working in a relationship with Gigi and NAMI, is they recognize that need for mental health also goes in the hand with spiritual health. What goes with the body, physical health. It's all tied together. Yeah.
Is there a higher incidence of suicide amongst LGBTQ members as opposed to that population, as opposed to the general population? Or
across the board, you find it all age levels. There's a higher rate, and as Gigi was saying, particularly among the youth, I think it's 60% of youth. Generally, that's kind of the right number percent of
60%.
Of youth suicides has to do with questioning youth. When you come with a sexual orientation that's already been defined for so many years as pathological, it wasn't until 1972 when the American Psychiatric Association, said that same-sex attraction was not an illness, but there's still too many institutions, families, churches, schools. We have this whole banning of books when, for myself as a gay man, it would have really helped my mental state and helped me save some money on therapy. Probably if I had books and mentors that I could read about to say, hey, I am not so strange, and being black and gay, had to fight both systems. And I and not to be so long-winded, but also I think we have to remember that what Pride was celebrated, Pride was started because of a revolution, because people threw off the shackles at Stonewall in 1969.
That was in New York, the incident in New York.
And then also in San Francisco at the Black Hat. Actually, that was a year before New York's, but people were claiming their humanity because of the mental crisis, particularly on transgender. It was the transgender community that led the battle. I know Pride is a lot of celebration and all, and the rainbows, and that's beautiful. But there's right now, again, like I said, there's bans going on books. There's movies that need to be shown. It's a different time.
Yeah,
and that's great.
Sure.
At least this conversation.
But as Dr. Mark indicated, for a long time there was no specific funding for individuals to get the mental health supports they need. More and more counties and cities and jurisdictions are doing that. So we're trying to make sure that at NAMI CC we partner, and so when individuals come to us looking for resources and referrals, we'll have the opportunity to let them know, of course, where they can go and people really appreciate getting support from a person who have their own personal lived experience.
Sure.
And they understand the challenges that an individual has faced. We have done a horrible job in this country of embracing all individuals that may be defined as different than the folks that have the positioning to do the work. So as we at NAMI recognize need, whether it be for LGBTQ or particular ethnic and cultural communities, we try and hire specifically for someone who can say, I've gone through that before. And so we really want people to walk into our site and be proud of who they are. And then if they are experiencing some anxiety or depression, they're receiving the most appropriate services, not just, okay, here you are, you're saying this is important to you, and we brush it off or never mind it because we don't carry the skill set to discuss it, or it's, something that we feel is not a part of it. As Dr. Mark said, shamefully in this country, it was once a person identifying as loving someone from their same sex was seen as a mental illness. Now, we've moved away from that, but we still have a very long way to go, even with commercials on TV, et cetera. Young people carry a great amount of anxiety and hurt and not feeling like they can be accepted when they start questioning their orientation. So we can do a much better job in this country and across the world.
Sure.
Sadly, I was just seeing that.
Just don't go to Turkey. Yeah.
Right. The new conduct. Also, they just passed some of the strictest. Yeah. Was it Uganda or Nigeria? It's the strictest,
Yeah,
sure.
And Uganda. Yeah.
Do you think it's getting better here in this country, though? Do you think it's obviously gotten a little bit, somewhat better because people have come out of the closet and so forth and so on. So I think we're making some progress in this country.
I think that's why I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Yeah. You're the expert.
Yeah, I was going to say, not without a battle and a fight. I mean, that's why I brought the Stonewall was more than just a party. It was a political protest. And it's not until that we stand up that and make some inroads. I mean, kind of shake the very structures of it that it gets better. It has involved, there's people marching and dying and fighting,
What's the policy in the military now? Do you know that?
I think the policy under President Obama, it starts to shift and change. And it's not the don't ask, don't tell. There are soldiers who are serving openly gay now, I know of. So that is a big change. Yeah. I mean, when you look at
yeah, certainly from when I was in the military, in 1968.
Yeah, we are aware that it has changed on paper. So like with many things, it can change on paper, but the action. So what if we were surveying individuals in the military, do they still feel like they can openly share that? And the answer to that is no. Yeah. So many military personnel still feel like they have to keep their sexual orientation preferences a secret.
Yeah. And in certain sports also, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think Gigi makes a great point. And I want to say about things changing. I just Gigi is an advocate for everyone in terms of mental health, and she's done such a wonderful job with getting the resources for the community with health. I mean, when she mentioned with sports, in the professional sports, I think of Esther Atuola he was in the NFL in San Diego. He has a book out about his experience of being in the NFL and being a gay man who was I think Tongan, and he said he was told after he was in the NFL, he was told by several players that if he had been in the NFL and come out at the time he would have been killed. Yeah. That's
he would have been hurt on the field, certainly very severely, I would think. Yeah. I don't know if he's still playing, but I remember.
No.
Yeah.
He's been retired, but in professional sports, and Gigi's so right that the laws may change and on paper, but it really needs to be cultural change. The ideas, the beliefs, the values, not only in America but also in the LGBT community, where we will internalize some of the same kind of understandings and behaviors. And I think the mental health crisis often comes to sometimes what we do to ourselves.
And what about religion? How does that, we got the various religious denominations here. And are some religions more accepting than others? I think that's probably a rhetorical question. But how is that?
Don't get me started.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I want you to do. You got a couple of minutes to express yourself.
All right. Religion. The ones that, there are in most mainline denominations, there's some type of LGBTQ movement, a welcoming and affirming or open affirming. I'm Baptist. I was part of the whole welcoming and affirming movement there. One can find churches. Probably the most open is the United Church of Christ, UCC. United Methodist has, moved in a good direction. At the same time, these denominations and their seminaries are losing a lot of support money and students. There's a big split in the United Methodist Church, many of the African churches and the Episcopal churches. Whenever there's a movement there, there are wonderful movements like what Bishop Flunder is doing over here in Oakland. She's just fabulous. She comes out of the Pentecostal community, Church of God in Christ, out of a love center where the Hawkins were. Her family were, really into the Pentecostal movement in San Francisco. And her wife is Mother Shirley, who recorded "Oh Happy Day" back in the 1960s. Yeah.
I remember.
And and so they've started a movement here in Oakland. They have a church. They're under the United Church of Christ. The bishop has the TFAM, which is the fellowship movement, which really reaches out to a lot of the African American congregations. And I know from Bishop, she talked with me, where a lot of clergy, gospel singers, and all call her up and say, "How do you do this? Can you help me?" Because in the black church, the LGBT story is told through. It used to be told through the gospel music. Hold back the night, give me strength to fight. I'll do your will. That's a gospel song. We sing it. But do people know the story of the man who wrote it? When he talks about the doctor had given him a diagnosis that he was not going to make it, and we all knew what it was. Some of us who were in the underground, and some people say it was, but it was a prayer, hold back this night, and the struggle that's there, or another gospel song, in the midst of isolation, Lord, speak peace. A lesbian woman wrote that, that this is the way we have articulated ourselves. We've dealt with our mental health through the instruments, through the songs, through the dance, through the culture.
How would you like? I mean, in countries we were to talk about various countries. That's some of the the Western European countries are more liberal in their thinking, but some religions are not as accepting. Some of the countries in Africa. As you said, you mentioned Nigeria. What would you like to see the world like? So the entire world were accepting. That would be a great thing. That's going to take some time, though, and some work.
Well, I'd say, it's just always, we're not, it's just like, what is the old gospel song? Lord, I may have not reached perfection, but I'm trying.
Yeah.
This ain't heaven yet.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some issues of inequality, there, and it's that message of love, of treating each other right, doing unto others you have them do unto you, has got to be consistent. It's and I will there be a time when everybody is accepted who are different? Well, we still have to look at what the majority does, or the people with power do. How people make money off of these politics and differences and benefit, for their own power. I think they got to.
Yeah, we've got some dangerous politicians out there. Certainly, Florida and other places. It's it's problematic. But some of the younger generation are more. What do you think?
I would agree there. That's what I was saying. I would agree there. However, in the LGBTQ community, that's still an issue generationally. I mean, the kids are challenging us. I mean, the whole gender pronouns. Even getting to putting the Q on LGBT. When I came along, coming out, it was just gay, lesbian. Okay?
Right.
And then AIDS hit. It was expanded. But every youth in the country are generally the where the social movement begins. That's the same for civil rights,
sure.
Power.
I think Dr. King was 27 or something like that when he Montgomery boycott, bus boycott.
Right. Yeah. No, the youth in our community have really made us talk about gender and gender identity.
Yeah.
Transgender persons were not welcome to gay bars. And the time of the Stonewall, they were kicked out. There would be fights. Lesbian women and gay men did not get along in the same spaces. We would fight each other.
I didn't know that.
But it's a sexism of gay men. But when AIDS hit, it was the lesbians who said, "Our brothers are dying. We got to take care of each other." And that's when we started opening up. It was like the late 80s and 90s, and the term queer was coming along, the umbrella community. We got to recognize bisexuals. We got to recognize transgender individuals. And yet still the T, transgender, because it's different than sexual orientation. I have a friend of mine right now, his partner has just discovered she's transgender, and he's gay. And they're trying to figure that out right now,
Yeah, I would imagine that could get a little complicated, the relationships there in transgender. I'm not sure that goes both ways or what, male, female, male, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not transgender, so I don't want to talk about it. But it's gender is so fluid. There's an interesting recording on TV special called "The 9 Month You Were Born," I think it's called, and it follows the gestation of a child all the way through, and they talk about all these hormones. What hormone produces gender,
sure.
and one produces sexuality. And they show that they don't line up. One comes before the other, and so it's just not this direct line.
Yeah, it's not just the X and Y chromosomes, huh? It's more than that.
Right. Yeah.
We have pretty much come to the very end of the show. Is there any last words of wisdom or things you'd like to say? But we've only got about a minute left.
Well, our motto at NAMI is "You're not alone." So, and I think some of the mottos that are used, like "it gets better." So, of course, our goal is to save people's lives and to make sure that they're not experiencing depression or anxiety. So, supporting them when they call us to get to a safe place so that we can reduce the harm done to any community member, regardless of their.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Mark Wilson.
Thank you for the invitation.
And thank you, Gigi Crowder, Executive Director of NAMI. And thanks for joining us here on America's Heroes Group.